Good evening, councillors, staff members and members of the public. Welcome to this OCM. I declare this opened at 5:30. In doing so, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you all for all attending. Councillors, we do have apologies from Councillor Steele and Councillor Steck, and the rest of us are here. I haven't received any declarations of interest. Sorry, I have received one, which is an impartial interest, but Councillor Turner will be remaining in the item for 15.1.1. Is there any other declaration of interest for tonight's council meeting? Thank you. We have received two lots of public question time, one of which I'll ask Gavin Pound to please join us and ask this question. So Gavin provided these questions a little while ago. So Gavin, if I can come and ask you to ask your three questions and then we'll provide a response to that. Thank you, Gavin.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. If I may, I'd just like to preempt how this happened. Is that all right with you?
Normally it's very direct questions, but if you can make it very summarised,
I will.
Thanks, Gavin.
I will. My son-in-law applied for a permit because he and I are probably the only people that have ever applied for permits for fire pits in the backyard. Chris, the previous fire ranger, was always very helpful with us, and eventually he got sick of coming out and inspecting, and he used to email us and just say, yeah, here's your permit, because he knew. Anyway, he applied for one a couple of weeks ago, and the lady at the counter said, oh, no, there's no permits available at this time. That's fine. But she said, by the way, pit fires have been banned in Bunbury indefinitely anyway. So I thought that was a bit odd. So I got her to ring the fire ranger and he said, yep, that's it. And then 2 days later, I came back to double check because I didn't think, I don't know. And so, yes, exactly the same result. So I emailed all of the councillors and the mayor, and I even emailed Don Punch. I went into his office. Not one of these people knew that somehow the pit fires had been banned completely in Bunbury. So my first question is the Bunbury's ban on pit fires at residential houses with block sizes less than 2,024 square metres, and I live at 8 and 10 Thomas Street, and that adds up to 1,500 square metres. So that's a ridiculous size. Is it the result of community consultation, discussion between council members and at any council meeting, and has it become a bylaw? If not, then who or whom is responsible for this supposed ban being advertised on the City of Bunbury website, therefore concerning both numerous ratepayers as well as the retailers who sell these pit fires? Bunnings, barbecues galore, are horrified. And they're just shaking their head. So, if not, therefore, concerning both numerous ratepayers and retailers who sell these supposed boilers, have they been told? Also, if it is a bylaw, where does it state that common household fire pits are totally banned all year round? Because it says that on the website, but I can't find it anywhere else. Question 2 is, will the council consider revising the inspection process of fire pits in Bunbury households and eliminating the red tape process of the fire ranger having to issue permits for every single use during the time frame of, withheld fire, time frames, for every single use of a household pit fire? So I would hazard a guess that all of you have got a pit fire at home or know someone who does. Every time they light it, and I think it's between a late March to mid-May, and then November, a time in November to time in December. Every time you light it, you have to get the fire ranger to come out, inspect your property, write out a permit, give it to you, and make sure that you follow the rules. So I believe that the requirement of a permit for every single use of single fire pit during this time is unnecessary. It's time consuming and it's an overburden on the poor fire ranger. His duties, as well as being an unnecessary requirement of responsible residents in Bunbury, where common sense and a trusting attitude could cancel the nanny state attitude towards this situation, which it is. Question 3 is, under the current guidelines for fire pits in Bunbury, this is an example, if I got 50 people to apply for their permit to the fire ranger in the same week for their legal fire pits for the same night or for the weekend at the same time, how would the City of Bunbury Fire Ranger cope with inspecting 50 or even 20 households and issuing the permits within his time frame of his working week? I don't think he'd be able to. I speak to 12 clients a day. I speak to my friends about it. We were talking about it down at the yacht club the other day. Not one person thinks that the way that this is handled with the fire pit permits and the inspections and everything is reasonable. They all think it's like fire pit Nazi time. I was talking to
Gavin, I might just stop
a
you
client,
there.
80 at the moment, in Harvey. All you have to do is follow the rules and make sure you light the fire after 6. No permits. Okay, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
I hope we can sort it out.
Thank you, Mr. Powney. Definitely, we're probably moving to more of a deputation there rather than questions, but we did obviously receive your questions in writing, which before passing the CEO, there are some significant responses here, so you might want to summarise those. They will be provided to you in writing and part of the minutes for the next council meeting. But I will just say, obviously, this was a policy change, and as we've discussed, and both with yourself and with some other elected members as well, that policy is going to be reviewed through the policy committee, and we'll be back here for a council position once that's gone through the policy committee. At that time, you obviously have every right to present to council in the deputational form that you've just made through that process to determine whether or not you're satisfied with any recommendations from that policy. But I'll refer, the CEO does have some official answers. I'm not sure if he's going to get into the full detail of some of the acts that are quoted, but I'll refer to the CEO to see if he wants to answer those questions.
Thank you, Mayor. And probably I would like to thank Mr. Pound for raising these issues, and I'm obviously well aware of all of the emails that have come through elected members. As the Mayor's outlined, that this will go back to the policy committee, so there will be a review of this policy, and in terms of the responses, I'm not going to try and go through them today, but and in some cases after we do the review, there probably will be. We will reply to them in the minutes, but they will probably be a little bit irrelevant given where I think council will go. We will take that to the policy committee and then come back, and as the Mayor said, you will have an opportunity to make a deputation at that point, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pound. As I said, the full responses to your questions will be written in writing and part of the minutes for the OCM from there as well, which quotes some of the other bits and pieces. But thank you for your question. We've also received a questions request from Alison Martin. Alison, I've just spoken to prior. We did receive these questions a little bit later. We don't have, from what I understand, responses as yet for these, but similar, they will be provided in writing to you and part of the minutes. But I'll invite Alison yourself up to now come and ask those questions now, if you could. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Number 1 question. I have made numerous complaints since October last year about the lady across the road's native hibiscus verge trees. I sent 2 emails and left 2 messages asking for a site meeting. No real response. It wasn't until I got frustrated and angry with the disregard for my concerns and sent an email to the CEO did I get a response. I don't consider this to be fair and reasonable behaviour from any local government. The trees on Bolton Street are currently over 3.5 metres tall and grow out over the verge if not cut back. The owner refuses to do any form of maintenance or care to the outside of her landscape in any of her landscaping at all. She does not mow the lawn unless she is compelled by council, and there is record of that. These trees completely block car drivers' ability to see through the corner. We have had to put hard stand on 1 metre of our own verge and a small retaining wall at our own expense, as cars are always driving up on our verge to avoid colliding. As an aside, that is actually not acceptable verge treatment, but that's what we've been compelled to do. I have support of many of my neighbours who are sick and tired of the seemingly protected ratepayer who doesn't have to meet council's verge policy. After the email to the CEO, the trees were partially cut, not removed, yet they were not done well, and visibility is still non-existent looking east. I wrote an email on the 8th of April pointing this out and demonstrated part of council's existing policies which prove it is still non-compliant. Didn't even get an answer. I was under the illusion that even if you do not agree with the contents of my email, I am at least entitled to a response. I have been advised that every time they again become a problem, I just have to email somebody at council and you guys will sort it out. Forgive me if I think that's a joke. And honestly, why should I have to email you every time? How is this acceptable behaviour and why do I have to ask and ask? Will council investigate this and make it compliant with their own existing policies? Question number 1. So question 2. I appreciate that preservation of street trees is important and removal is not ideal. However, personally, I have had 4 misses, one as close as 300 mil away from me. I have witnessed others having similar experiences. I have to actually step out onto the narrow road to see if there are cars coming. I made council aware of this in emails. I appreciate that the homeowner wants a shade in her courtyard, but why doesn't she have to do what the rest of us have to do and install a shade saddle similar and put it in her own property? Why is it that the preservation of poorly planted and managed street trees have become more important than the risk of harm to ratepayers? And question number 3. Due to my profession, I deal with certain departments of council on a regular basis. My neighbours and I have let this go for ages in the hope that it would be taken care of by council. I'm not impressed with public speaking and confrontation, yet I have to come here to get answers, and it's ridiculous. I shouldn't be here. This is the reason many of us give up and don't do anything. And you can say what you like, but as a former local government employee, I know with absolute certainty that this goes on. How can I be sure that this will not be the case moving forward, and what assurances do I have? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions, Alison. As I indicated earlier, we haven't yet got responses for those questions, but they will be provided to you in writing and be part of the minutes, so that'll come through to you. Thank you. We'll also note we've just been joined by Sonia Dye, I'm assuming representing Minister Punch, so thank you, Sonia, for joining us, maybe here in your personal capacity, but either way, thank you for joining us. Councillors, we have the minutes of the ordinary council meeting from the 8th of April. Is somebody happy to move those minutes to true and accurate record? Thank you, Councillor Kozseka. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ramesh, thank you. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried. Thank you. And we have the minutes of the Policy Review and Development Committee, many of the items dealing with tonight. Is somebody happy to move that we accept that? Thank you, Councillor Quain. Is there a seconder? Councillor Kozsek. I'll put that. Those in favour. That's carried. Thank you. From what I understand, Councillor, we haven't received any petitions to be up or deputations to be received. So dealing with tonight's council agenda, councillors, we have some items to deal with so far. So item 10.3.3 does require an absolute majority, so that will be coming out. Item 12.1 was a motion on notice from Councillor Steck. Now, understanding orders, if the motioner is not here, and they have not provided written advice, from what I understand, to any elected members to move it on their behalf. Is that correct? No elected members ever received written advice So from the advice I've been given is that that motion notice cannot be there. We will put that back to the next council OCM meeting in 3 weeks' time, and that'll be explained to Councillor Steck. So item 12.1 won't be dealt with tonight. Councillors will also be dealing with item 15.1.1, which is the confidential item, and that will be dealt with, that will be put to go towards closed doors. Is there any other items for discussion this evening? Right. If that's the case, is somebody happy to move that the remainder are moved en bloc? That's moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Brown. I'll put that. Those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. And for members of the public, those items that haven't been brought out for discussion have now been carried as written. So the items we have to deal with, councillors, item 10.3.3 does require an absolute majority, which will be 6 votes. Is somebody happy to move the executive recommendation? Councillor Kozak, seconder. Councillor Ramesh. Is there likely to be any debate on this item, councillors? If that's the case, I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried by absolute majority. Thank you, councillors. So, councillors, we move to item 15.1, which, as I explained to the proponents last week and the residents, this will be dealt with behind closed doors. So I do need to have somebody move that we move to confidential settings. Councillor Andrew, thank you. Councillor Kozasek, all those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. So for those in the public, we've moved behind closed doors. Thank you for those rejoining us. While we were behind closed doors, this executive recommendation was moved, seconded and carried unanimously. That executive recommendation under the standing orders I will now read. That Council, in accordance with Clause 68(2) of Schedule 2 of the Planning and Development Local Planning Scheme, Regulations 2015, and the City of Bunbury Local Planning Scheme number 8, resolve to approve the application for change of use to residential building at Lot 61, number 11 Bob Court, South Bunbury, subject to the following conditions. Condition 1, at all times the development of the subject of this development approval must apply with the definition of residential building as contained in the Residential Design Codes Volume 1, codes. Condition 2 is that all development shall be in accordance with the approved development plans that are attached, which forms part of the development approval. Condition 3 is that this development approval will expire if the approved development has not substantially commenced within 2 years of the date of issue of approval, or with any extended time of the city for which the City of Bunbury has granted prior written consent. Condition 4 is that all times the site shall operate in accordance with the approved operational plan. Condition 5, external lighting must be designed, baffled and located as to prevent any adverse effect on adjoining land to the satisfaction of the City of Bunbury. And condition 6 is prior to the occupation of the development, a schedule of exterior materials, colours and finishes of the proposed by-court gate demonstrating visual permeability be submitted for approval at the City of Bunbury. The gate must be finished and maintained in accordance with the approved schedule of materials. As I indicated, that recommendation from staff has been moved, seconded and carried unanimously and now becomes the decision of council. Councillors and members of the public and staff, thank you for joining us. I declare this meeting closed at 5:51. Thank you.